are listening to the HangOut podcast, proudly brought to you by Talanta Productions. And now, here is today's episode.
Welcome to today's podcast. We are excited that you've joined us. Welcome from wherever you're listening to us from. And we want to just appreciate you. This is our first episode now. Episode 1. Last week was episode 0. We're excited that you're here with us today. Today's podcast is exciting. We're going to talk about a word or something that I think one of the most commonly used word, which is love. Today we're talking about love. I mean, when you mention the word love, to some people it just evokes all kinds of emotions and feelings. But we're going to talk about it briefly today and see what love is, especially from God's perspective. You know, they say you hear people saying true love. So for someone to say there's true love, it means there's also fake or false love. So we're going to digress a bit on that. Let me start by saying that in the English language, the word love has many meanings. Sometimes we use it for trivial pleasures like the love of sport, the love of cars, even of pets, or it can be equated to romantic feelings of falling in love. Somebody says, I've fallen in love. They're talking about the romantic feelings that they're feeling at the moment. However, if I hope to understand what love truly is, I must also understand how God defines it. For example, in the New Testament, there are 4 different Greek terms used for love, but the highest form is called agape, which means the fatherly love of God. Now, the word agape, actually, it's interesting that it's been used 116 times in the Bible. And most of it appears in this book in 1 Corinthians, chapter 13. Corinthians was a book written by Paul to the church in Corinth. And he does his best to just try and define what love is from God's perspective. Because, if you don't understand how God sees and values love, you might not be able to actually live it out or even receive it correctly. So what does Paul say about love? We're just going to look at a few definitions and then talk briefly about it and see. The first definition he says is that love bears all things. Love bears all things. This means, bearing all things actually just means to cover over with silence. To cover over with silence. It's a very difficult thing for somebody to see an offense, a fault, or for you to be offended and just be silent. Many times, we want to give these people a piece of our mind. We want to correct them. We want to, bash them the best way we can. But actually, Paul says, if you say that you love someone, or you're even in love, does that kind of love you have bear all things? Instead of making another person's faults or errors public, for example, agape builds a roof to protect someone. It could be a fallen brother or sister from shame and ridicule. It could be your, loved one. It could be your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend. If you do not have the ability to bear all things, then, my friend, kind of review what love is according to you. Because in this day and age, people quick and prone to just attack. Do something, I'll be there. I'll be there to correct and attack instead of bearing in silence. The second definition that Paul gives, he says that love believes all things. Love believes all things. For example, in his love towards us, God places confidence and trust in us. He does not doubt us. It's not being gullible, but rather a choice to think the best of us rather than the worst. It is not that you're saying, I'm aloof to this person's fault, or I choose to ignore them. They are not, it doesn't mean whatever they've done or whatever they're saying isn't, for example, hurting me, but I choose to see the best in them. That's why he says love, true love, that the one that comes from God, covers and believes in all things. Seeing the best in people. The third definition is love hopes for all things. Love hopes for all things. This basically just implies that God is cheering us on. He confidently anticipates our victory, regardless of our present imperfections. He believes and hopes. He knows that we're going to be perfect. He knows that we're going to be, stable in whatever area we're struggling, whatever need we may be facing. God sees us in a totally different way, because genuine love believes in God's power to transform our life. Let me repeat that. Genuine love believes in God's power to transform our life. I know you've shared this statement. I also say it all the time that no one is perfect. What do you actually mean by that statement, no one is perfect? It simply means, because I know I'm imperfect, definitely the people I interact with, the person I know, maybe on a close level, does not have, everything figured out. Their life they don't have everything in place. And the only way I can deal with such a person, the only way, is if I have hope in them, because love hopes for all things. The last definition for today is love endures all things. This means to abide or remain. To abide or remain, even when the conditions or trials are testing our faith or our belief in something or someone. I look at my own life, and I realize that it is not that I don't have shortcomings or mistakes or I fall from time to time. There are so many. But guess what? If you don't have the ability to endure all things, think about how much God endures from us as His children, as human beings, as His creation. You'll be surprised. God sees an atheist, for example, in a totally different way than we see them. Us, we see a byproduct of non-belief, a result of mixed or confused faith, but God sees it in a totally different way. God sees the potential in the person. Why? Because He never gives up on us. He endures. So are we able to endure other people? If you're not able to endure what someone else is doing that may be offending or hurting you, then my brother, my sister, I don't think we have reached, or we are at that position where we can say, I truly love this person. When you say, I truly love this person, it means I bear all things from this person. With all their errors, I can actually just keep quiet and overlook. I always believe that not every problem or offense should be addressed or corrected. Let me repeat that. Not every problem or offense should be addressed or corrected. Because if you do that, you'll end up being an arm of the police. Because that's what it means. Police. The word to police means, one of the key reasons why they're there is to maintain law and order. That is their number one task. And so if you're not careful, you'll end up always seeing the first thing that jumps at you is a fault. So if you're not able to bear all things, that is to cover with silence, then you don't love that person. If you don't believe, because it says love believes all things, if you don't believe in them, you do not love them. You're just seeing the worst in them every time. The third one is love hopes for all things. Do you hope that this person will change? Are you seeing the best in them? Or is it a struggle? And then last one, are you able to endure? Because love endures all things. Are you able to endure whatever shortcomings, weaknesses, or failures this person may be exhibiting from time to time? Because people are never the same. Someone may not stay in one condition for forever or for life. They may be struggling in an area right now, just for now, because it's a season. But if you really believe and have hope and endure, trust me, they're going to change. The Apostle Paul called us to grow in the fruits of the Holy Spirit. But he knew that we could never work out our way into it. because it's a love that grows in us by God, which means if I want to love somebody in these 4 ways, I need to ask God. I finish with this quote. It's from Robert Heinlein, and it says, "Love is that condition in which the happiness of another person is essential to your own."
There you go. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.